Hello, everyone, and happy Lionsgate energy. We are in the Lionsgate portal right now at the culmination point of the Lionsgate. And I'd like to talk to you about an astral projection that occurred for me on the morning of the Lionsgate. That's the morning of the Lionsgate, the 8th of the 8th of August. So I am just minimizing my screen so I can look at my notes. So I knew that the Lionsgate portal, like many of the high energetic points, allow you to connect closer with the galactic energy, if you will, with the DNA activation, with that internal crystalline transformation, and awaken the pineal gland, move through a Kundalini experience. That there are these points that are heightened where you are able to connect closer. So downloads are often given quite profoundly at this time, although sometimes this can come in the form of new challenges. Sometimes it can seem like everything's going wrong, that there's some kind of negative spiral around you, but actually you're being led into situations for you to work through, transmute, integrate, so that you can move forward in a way that is going to give you growth and expansion. So it depends on who you are and what your circumstances are and what your life is, what your reality is, as to how these experiences affect you. And often it's unexpected. It doesn't come the way you think it will. For me personally, I really try hard not to have expectations at all, but we do, don't we? So we also make plans, and we try to incorporate perhaps our expectations in with plans. So for me personally, I felt that the Lionsgate portal is not just on the 8th of August. It's several days either side of that, starting on or around the 26th of July, and it's going on or around the 15th, 16th of August, maybe heightened around the sort of 6th to the 12th, with the uppermost point on the 8th. So I wasn't expecting anything specific. It's more for me about creation. I like to create the portal for myself. So I will specifically make plans or do certain things, meditation, or work with my crystals or my altar or my work or with the 9 or whatever. And I try to make intentions for the portal rather than allowing it to just happen. But of course, it's always a bit of both. It's always 50% your input and 50% the galactic response to your input. So for me, my plans were, I was going to attend a group meditation locally, but that didn't happen. And I was going to work on the book that I'm writing, specifically on a part of the book that I felt was in alignment with the Lionsgate. But that didn't happen either, because often with astral projection, it will happen early in the morning when the pineal gland is at its highest activation. And so often you can wake up early and go to the bathroom, or have a drink, or get up and walk around, and then go back to sleep. That is often the main trigger for astral projection, because you are still tired, but you aren't tired enough to go into deep sleep in the same way as you would when you first go to bed at night. It's a different kind of state, and you're tired, but you're also lucid and awake at that point, because you've interrupted your sleep early in the morning. So it needs to be anywhere from 3 a.m. to say 6 a.m., even as late as 7 a.m., depending on your schedule. You wake up, you spend a bit of time awake, and then you go back to sleep. And often these will be the days you have your lie-in. But it really does depend on your pattern. It can work differently for everyone, but that's how it works for me. But I wasn't necessarily expecting a download or expecting an astral projection. So I was falling back to sleep after having woken up. So this is the early hours, and I'm talking around maybe 6 a.m., 7 a.m., that sort of time. And I found myself, as I was falling asleep, moving into a galactic visual. So I was out in outer space, if you will. I sensed the guidance around me that I knew were the 9, but I didn't see them, but I felt them with me. Now, interestingly, in this particular astral projection, I was not the same size as I am in real life. Now, normally my astral body will present with similar perspective as my physical body. I'll be the same size as my physical body, but we can shapeshift within astral projection, and we can take on many forms. These are the codes in Alice in Wonderland, when she eats the cake and goes very, very tiny, or she grows very, very big like a giant. That's the shape-shifting abilities that we have when we're in the astral body. But I haven't really worked with that side of things for myself. I've entered a celestial body once in my life that I have memory of, which is more of a matrix that has a certain glow, a certain celestial blue tinge to it. But I've never found myself larger than I am. But in this particular astral projection, I was vastly larger than my physical self. And that's because I was taken by the 9, by the guidance system around me, to this space rock in outer space, in hyperspace, in inner space. So this is the galactic frequency. I was taken to this space rock. I didn't realize I was larger than my usual form. I just felt that the space rock was small. So it was maybe this long in front of me and this high, like a cigar-shaped space rock. It wasn't until I was directed by the guidance, and as I said, I wasn't aware that it was the 9 because I didn't see them, but I was aware of the guidance that was outside of my conscious awareness. I was aware the guidance was directing me to place my hand upon the space rock. And it was only when I placed my hand upon the space rock that I realized its actual size. So this space rock was huge within the perspective of our solar system, our universe, our galaxy. It's vastly huge. And I was taken into a perspective where I was larger than it, so that I could give it healing, which I didn't realize I was being called to do. So I've taken some notes here so I can go through this, because there's a lot to unpack. And with astral projection, you kind of get in the moment. The download comes through in that moment. And it takes several hours afterwards to unpack the download that you've received as one monadic structure. That's kind of how it works. Now, this has happened to me before. If you remember my video back in 2020 called Stargate Ascension, 3 Steps to Stargate Ascension in Being in the Houses. That video was an astral projection, and that video was out in the asteroid belt, where I communed with the consciousness of a being there. This astral projection was literally the galactic sphere, the galactic plane, and it was just me and this space rock and my guidance system. There was no other entity or consciousness, just us. So I could see the vastness, the blackness of space, and this space rock, which, as I said, I thought was small, but when I touched the space rock, I realized how vast it was, because I was communicating with it, merging with it. So I realized that I was in a much larger form than I hold in order to be able to give this space rock healing. So we, as starseeds, as awakened individuals, we are very much in tune with the fact that we can call the galactic energy to us and receive galactic light codes, receive information, and receive healing from that galactic structure, specifically the central core of the galaxy, the grand central sun, the Sirius solar binary dance that takes place. We know that we can receive energy from that and from the different aspects within that galactic structure. But do we ever think to ourselves that we can give healing back to that? I hadn't really seen it that way. I didn't realize the galactic structures needed healing per se. I'm aware of the galactic grids and the dragon lines, the ley lines that run through the galaxy as well as running through our planet, and that we need to grid work, if you will. But I've never seen myself necessarily as a grid worker or a healer, because I'm a conduit, I'm a channel, but all of these things occur when you're a starseed. You become all of these things within that journey, and you might specifically work with one thing. But on this particular occasion, and it's happened before where I've given healing, on this particular occasion, I was a healer and a galactic grid worker on this occasion, as well as being a communicator. So I could sense that this space rock was huge. I mean, I can't give you dimensions of what it actually would be in space. Just absolutely huge. Obviously not as big as Earth, but a big, big structure. And I was in the perspective of being larger than it. It was predominantly grey, like a rock, and it was a dark grey, and it was sort of jagged and rough, but it had a structure to it. But there were certain pieces of it that looked like it was a different material. It was black, and it looked more like a cross between iron and crystal, or some kind of electric or conductive fabric that was in this space rock. Now, this space rock told me, within the communication, which was all telepathic, it doesn't speak the English language, it's just an instant translation of frequency. And as I said, I had the guidance structure with me, which I perceived to be the 9, but it was the 9 outside of the white-winged collective consciousness form. It was the galactic aspect of the 9, which I don't see that often. This is pure energy without form. That's who the 9 were. So they're not really the 9 as in a structure of 9. This is the consciousness of the galactic field that is specifically aligned with me as an individualized structure. So that guidance was with me. Now, this space rock told me through this telepathic communication that it was a meteorite. And I thought, okay, I don't really know what a meteorite is particularly, other than a space rock. So that's what it told me that it was. Now, not only did I pick up that this meteorite, I'm calling it a meteorite because that's what it told me it was. Since waking up, I've done some research and it doesn't look anything like a meteorite. I'll go into that later, but I will refer to it as a meteorite while I'm talking about this first part of the communication. So this meteorite, not only did it show me its vastness in size, and I'm talking about the size it would be in our galaxy, solar system. Because obviously when you go through astral projection, you are going inward into inner space, inward into hyperspace, which is the cellular structure of your own body, which is hyperspace. That is the antimatter inversion aspect to physical space, because physical space doesn't support human third dimensional life. But in the fourth dimensional and above body, then the galactic structure supports life because you are at one with that life. So you can hold your own individualized perspective and see the individualized perspective of a space structure like a meteorite and have communication with it. But you are working within the unity of your own inner space self, which is an inversion, but an absolute replica of the physical galactic plane. They're one and the same. They move through each other like this. So you've got a spiral coming out this way, a spiral coming out this way, and they are absolute reflections of one another, holographic and fractal. So I could see that this structure, I could feel that this structure was vastly huge in its real size when measured with our physical galaxy, universe, solar system. Also, I could tell that this meteorite was burning hot. I mean, hotter than anything I have ever perceived before. It was just, I mean, I couldn't even explain the heat that it had. And I remember thinking, so I was touching it, I remember thinking how strange that in my physical body, I couldn't sustain life next to the heat of this rock. And yet here I am in my astral body, in my fourth dimensional body, and I'm able to sustain that level of heat. And of course, the laws are very different when you're in hyperspace, when you're in the astral body. You still perceive everything as if you were in the physical body, but so it can give you surprises. I remember once when I went underwater and couldn't believe I could breathe, but that's because you can breathe underwater in the astral body. You can breathe in outer space in the outer body, and you can touch what I thought was a meteorite that is burning hot. So they're the two things about the structure, as in its size and its temperature. But then there was more. This structure held consciousness. It was individualized consciousness in and of itself within the structure, but it was a consciousness that was at one with all the structures in the galactic plane and the multiversal structure. It was able to, through choice, be an omnipresent consciousness, but it did this in a way where it chose which aspect to tune in on. So it wasn't omnipresent in and of itself, but it had the capacity to be that, which obviously we can do as awakened starseeds through our connections with all these different elements and flame letters and archetypes and structures that show themselves to us. We can be that as well. So it was connected, kind of like if you think of a forest, a tree is an individualized tree, but it's at one in a unified field with all the trees in the forest. It was kind of like that. It was at one with all the structures in the galactic plane, but not in a hive mind sense, as in all one and all controlled by an outside source. It was individual, it had its own consciousness, and it had emotion as well. And I was surprised partly, but the other part of me wasn't. I was not surprised. I kind of knew that this was the case, that it had its own individualized emotion. And it was sad. It was sad. So it had been calling for healing, and the galactic aspect of the nine, the actual aspect of the nine that hold no form, had directed me on the morning of the Lion's Gate into a situation where I would give healing. Now, just the act of placing my hand upon this meteorite space rock, without even concentrating about healing, I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to draw healing forward and heal you. It was literally the act of touching it. Out of curiosity, out of interest, the fact that it was there in front of me and I just felt so strongly directed to touch it, that my touch of my hand, it was my left hand on this meteorite space rock, was enough to give healing instantly. I didn't even try. Now, I'm told this is the ability all the starseeds have. You don't need to think about healing. You do in your healing practice as a healer. But as a starseed, in that situation, especially in the astral body, in hyperspace, it just kind of happens instantaneously without you thinking about it. So I put my hand, my left hand, on the body of this space rock, and instantly I felt its size, its temperature, I felt the sadness, I felt its consciousness, I felt its connection with the galactic plane. But then I felt the raise in frequency where it moved into joy because it had connected with me. And I wanted to know why it was sad. Now, that isn't really the reason I was taken there. I was taken there to offer healing. It's galactic grid work that I was doing, I'm told, from the 9. Obviously, I've spoken to them about this afterwards, and I've been working through integration of the whole experience and translating that monad into language so that I can impart it to you. So I wanted to know why it was sad. I was taken there to heal, but I wanted to know why it was sad. Why would a rock in space be sad? And it imparted to me through telepathy the information that all space rocks like this space rock, meteorites, sorry, I'm being slow, I want to get this right. All of them map out a trajectory as to where they are going. They do this by some kind of sonar sound where they project out this webbing that is like a trajectory of where they're going. It's like sonar, and it's very close to what the whales do and dolphins. They can, through sound, create like a web, a webbing, and follow it. When they come into the orbit or close to the orbit of another structure, specifically a planet, especially a planet that's inhabited, and this is a third dimensional aspect of this. I mean, obviously I was in my 4th dimensional body and I was communing with the 4th dimensional aspect of this space rock meteorite, but it has a 3rd dimensional counterpart, just like I do. So I'm now in my 3rd dimensional body. It has a 3rd dimensional body. It's out there somewhere in actual physical space. I can't reach it with my 3rd dimensional body because it doesn't sustain life, but I could reach it in the 4th dimensional body. Now, what it was telling me is when there's a planet that's inhabited in third dimensional reality, it holds a, it's not really a desire, but it is a kinship and a guardianship with the planet and humanity. It is aware of the fact that it's life, and the last thing that this space rock meteorite would ever want to do is come into a collision with a planet, especially an inhabited one. So what they do is, and they all do this, and there are, I won't say negative and positively polarized, it is like that. There are more negative structures out in the galactic reality, in the universe, and more positive ones, but ultimately within the organic structure, outside of any kind of influence, infiltration, or hijacking, all of these space bodies hold this reverence for human life, a kinship with life itself, and would never set a trajectory for a collision with a planet. So what they do is when they're coming close to in the orbit, the space, or just close to it, when they're coming close to the orbit of a planet, they are able to communicate with the planet through this kind of signaling. They communicate with the core of the planet, the central core of the planet. And it's done through a signaling, a kind of like this sonar kind of sound wave thing. I'm not really sure what it is I'm seeing, but what I couldn't really give a word to what I was being shown as to how the space rock communicates with the core of the planet, the core of Earth. Very difficult to give it any kind of label because I haven't seen anything like this before. Them playing music together, some kind of electrical connection, sound, sonar. It was just very difficult, but the rock itself gave me a metaphor and said, it's like the nearest thing that you would know is Morse code. It's like your Morse code. So it's kind of like this digital code, and it's able to communicate with the core of the planet. What it then does once it's gone through this communication, and the two of them communicate together, the planet communicates with the meteorite structure, and this wasn't falling to Earth. This was not in Earth's atmosphere, which is why I don't understand why it called itself a meteorite, because I did some research to find out that meteorites are actually space structures falling into the atmosphere. That's what's called a meteorite. And it wasn't doing that at all. It was out in the galaxy, but reasonably close to Earth, but not on a trajectory for a collision with Earth, because it has this communication with the core of Earth through this Morse code type thing. And then once it knows where the trajectory is, it sends out this mapping, and then it's able to move off on its trajectory without any kind of collision. That's what occurs in an organic galactic reality. And it's traveling very, very fast, even though it seemed completely still to me when I saw it. It was just still, but I know it's traveling very, very fast, and I didn't hold that perception at the time when I was with it. Now, the reason why it was sad is because there has been some infiltration, and this is where we start to discuss fiction. We're talking about the novel here. This is nothing to do with anything that could possibly occur in real life. This is a fictional novel, a science fiction galactic fantasy. Okay, so in this galactic fantasy novel, there's been some infiltration within the structure of the galactic plane, the third dimensional and fourth dimensional, but we're looking here at third dimensional infiltration. There's some kind of technology that has been put out that interferes with the sonar, this ability to map out the trajectory and the ability to communicate with the planet. It's like the meteorite showed me, it's like this awful, awful sound that is debilitating and confusing and hurting the ears of this rock, even though it didn't have any ears. So I'm explaining it from the only way I know the only way I know how to do it, but it was awful and so interfering and causing these emotions to be sad. Now, I've spoken to the 9 afterwards. These are not emotions. They are pulses. They are electromagnetic pulses. But when we're in our fourth dimensional body, we can telepathically communicate with anything, and we can communicate with these pulses because these pulses are on the same frequency as our emotions, because our emotions are actually galactic pulses as well. So it's perfectly possible for us to communicate with these structures that we would see as inanimate objects and rocks. From what I saw within this astral projection remote view journey, they are absolutely not just rocks. They are of grand, intelligent consciousness and awareness. So this sonar, this interruption to the sonar, it's like a kind of a awful constant pulse, and this pulse is inorganic. This pulse is artificial. It is not in alignment with the natural tone and sound and music of the galactic planes. So it's hurting the ears of all of these structures, and I know they don't have ears, but they are able to take in this sound in the way we would in our ear, our inner ear structure. So allowing us to hear, they've got the same thing. It's just not a human ear, but they can still feel it. Now, this meteorite space rock told me that it wasn't as bad for him, her, there was no kind of gender there. It wasn't as bad for this particular one as some of its brothers and sisters, as in other ones, because he could feel what they were going through. This one hadn't quite been caught by this as much. What this is doing is sending out this pulse that's confusing these meteorite type space rocks. They're unable to send out this sonar webbing and create a mapped trajectory so that they do not go into a collision. So basically what I'm saying here is that this infiltration within this fictional science fiction galactic fantasy novel, the naughty, dark, bad beings in this novel are actually changing the trajectory of what they think is just space debris, but space debris as in meteorites, comets, meteoroids and asteroids. I had to research all this because I'm not familiar with these structures at all. They're altering the natural trajectory of it somehow with this infiltration of the sonar. So they're using sound, the sound and frequency and something else. I don't even have a word for what I'm seeing, but they're using this to alter the trajectory. Obviously, this is part of the hijack from the overlords in this novel, so that they can say to the Fae in the village, oh, goodness me, be scared of the unknown, be scared of what's out there, because there are all these scary big rocks and asteroids and they're all heading for the village. So this is a science fiction, novel, a science fiction story, in order to present fear. Now, I was told back in 2022 that the arena used for the giant chess game, if you will, that arena was not just the kooky and the juice using the biology of the human template. It wasn't just that, it was the whole thing. So we're looking at all the aspects within the Earth human arena. And one of those aspects is space. It's using all of them, all the elements, earth, air, fire, water, all the elements. Are they using the whole thing? So bringing in fear of one's environment on all levels, the inner environment of self, spiritually and physically, and the outer environment also, including space. So this is all to create drama and fear within the novel, and potentially even create a collision with the trajectory of something. or at least the illusion of that, or at least that might happen, because they don't really know, because their technology doesn't really see everything. Their technology can do some things, but it can't see all of it. I was a bit concerned about talking to you all about this, because I thought, well, am I going to give something away? And this meteorite rock said no, because there's nothing they can do. It doesn't matter how much you tell people and how much they listen to you and learn from you about what's going on. There's nothing that they can do. Their technology can't reach the antidote for this. And that's where we kind of went next. What this meteorite said to me is, there are things that can be done to get them back into this organic, get all of these meteorites and structures, space debris and all these rocks back into an organic placement, where they are then able to shut off this awful sound and get back to their own sonar and make communication with the planets and map out the webbing and get their trajectory. Now, how this is done is through the drawing down of a substance that is in the 5th dimension and above. So this substance is created in the 5th dimension, and when it translates into the 3rd dimension, it doesn't hold the same form in the 3rd dimension, but it holds the frequency and the energy of that form. So it's kind of like the space rock meteorite's higher self. And how it's drawn down to them through the 5th dimension, through the 4th dimension, into the 3rd dimension, actually into the physical galactic world, the galactic plane, our universal structure. How that is done is, again, through this sound, through this kind of frequency, but it's done through the call that is the bliss-charged love. So when humanity, and we're obviously talking about aware and awake humanity that hold the organic human template without infiltration, that have not been drinking juice or doing anything to affect that human template and its ability to radiate. When humans come together in unification and joy, happiness, bliss, compassion, love, healing one another, loving one another. And I know that this sounds like a spiritual cliche. It's like, oh, love and light and compassion and love, and this is the 5th dimension and new earth. And a lot of people get confused by that. It sounds so fluffy. And so how can love and connection and hugging each other and feeling joy, how can that actually translate to tangibly helping the reality within this 3rd dimension? And this space rock, this meteorite, was telling me how it can help it specifically and its brothers and sisters. So we're talking about how it helps the galactic structures that look like meteorites and comets and asteroids and other space objects, because it told me it's none of these things. It's not categorizable. They're all unique. That you can't just say all of these are meteorites, all of these are asteroids, all of these are something else. They're categorized by man, whereas they are themselves. And this one said it's a meteorite. That's the nearest it could be, even though it doesn't fit that description, because I've researched them and looked at them and they look nothing like this one. So this is how it occurs when awake, aware humanity, the starseeds, and let's look at that word. We are seeded from the stars, and we seed the stars. This is all explained in my book, Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame, which is channeled from the 9. So we are at one with the galactic reality and all of the planets and all of the stars throughout the multiverse. We are at one with that. And as I said, we do this through the inner space, the hyperspace travel, and we can access it through astral projection, Merkaba activation, deep, profound meditation, dream time work, all these things. We can access this. So how this is done is when the starseeds come together and they feel joy, love, bliss, euphoria, and it doesn't mean that they have to literally be next to one another. What it means is that they're doing it all at the same time. So you can actually have all these starseeds in their huts, in the village, all separated. But if they're all doing something at the same time within, and I don't mean exactly like 2 o'clock on Sunday, we must all do this, which is great if you do, but I'm talking about within a window of several days, like the Lion's Gate, because that's when this all came to me, on the actual morning of the Lion's Gate, 8th of August. So within a window, when all these individuals are doing the same thing, as in feeling bliss, connecting with the galaxy, connecting with their higher guidance system, feeling love, coming together in harmony, healing others, helping others, giving information, when they do all that, they are in a 5th dimensional frequency. They are holding 5th dimensional consciousness and radiating that template from the higher heart. What that creates, unbelievably, and this is the first time I've heard of this, I knew about bliss and euphoria and ecstasy and those frequencies of the highest degree. And I also knew, and Nine had told me this, that bliss as an emotion holds the matching vibration to the element of gold. I knew that, but I did not know that when the humans hold this bliss together as a unified group, and I know it's not happening across the whole planet, but we have a critical mass of starseeds that are doing this all the time. When they do this, their bliss creates actual gold in the 5th dimension. It's a golden frequency in the 5th dimension, and it takes on a form and it looks like a golden sparkly dust. It kind of looks like fairy dust. So we are talking about a novel and we're talking about fairies, and I know this all sounds really bizarre and like an actual fairy story, but it looks like fairy dust and it's golden. That's the 5th dimensional element. It's like an element. So we've got like metal and hydrogen and all of the elements, which I don't really know much about. I'm so not boffed up on chemistry, but it's an element. It's a 5th dimensional element, and it's gold. So bliss coming from the collective humans creates an actual tangible element in the 5th dimension as a response to their bliss. So every time we feel bliss, we aren't just raising our own golden frequency and raising the Kundalini and drawing down all this wonderful knowledge from the galactic chakras. We are at one with that galactic plane, and we're healing it as well as it healing us. We're giving it information as well as it giving us information. We are uploading to that galactic plane as well as downloading from it. So this gold in the 5th dimension is like a golden dust, like a sparkly golden dust. Then what it does is it translates down through the dimensions. It goes into the 4th dimension, where it looks very similar to how it is in the 5th dimension, but it's not as bright, it's not as sparkly. It takes on more of a metallic element with like golden filaments to it. It doesn't have the vibrancy of gold like in the 5th dimension. So when it's in the 4th dimension, it's got a different elemental structure to it. Kind of, I think more like fool's gold, that crystal, but it's got like a glow, but it's got a more metallic kind of structure to it in the 4th dimension. But it's changeable, and it's shape-shifting because in the fourth dimension, that's what happens. And then this falls into the third dimension. This actually comes into our physical galactic space. And it's like space dust. It looks like a black or gray dust-like substance, like ash, but it holds the gold within it. So it's still gold. It's still the element of gold, even in the third dimension, but it's kind of like an ash structure with gold inside. So if you were to be out in the galaxy and you saw it, you would just see it as space debris, as maybe as something a bit sparkly, but you wouldn't see it as gold. Now, what this actually does, and it's a two-way thing between the meteorite, space rock, and the third dimensional golden dust that looks like ash. It's like a magnetic alignment where the dust coats itself around, all around the space rock. The meteorite or asteroid or comet or whatever word you give to this structure, it called itself a meteorite, as I said. It coats itself because it was telling me that it's the dust version of itself. It's the higher self version of itself. Within the core of this space rock is gold, actual gold, but it doesn't look like gold here on Earth. When we find gold here on Earth, it's, you know, golden. Actually, you can tell it's gold, but out in space, it's got a different kind of structure, a different kind of hue, but it's gold. So this meteorite is actually holds gold within it. But you can't see it on the surface. It just looked like this black, grayish rock with like a large fool's gold without the shine, but you could tell that it was there. And then these black elements that are kind of like this conductive iron crystalline kind of black crystalline structure, reflective black crystalline structure. I don't even know what it is. Is there even a word for this? Some kind of ore, O-R-E, is the only thing I can come up with. So this dust coats the entire structure. And what that actually does is then bring it back to this organic, because it needs the gold. It needs the gold to get back on its trajectory with this sonar that it's shooting out. So what it does is it allows it to no longer hear this awful screech of this artificial, inorganic infiltration messing up its sonar. It takes it back down to the organic. It's able to then connect with the planet it's near, Earth or whichever planet, especially an inhabited planet, and then map out its trajectory so it doesn't collide. So basically what's being said here is when we as humans come together in unity, either together in our actual space or on our own, but doing something at the same time as others, for example, meditation, but it could be anything. It's the emotion. We broadcast this signal of bliss and connection and unity. We create this golden substance within the fifth dimension that filters through the dimensions, because everything in 5D filters down. And it actually becomes galactic dust, space dust, that coats these huge structures and allows them to produce their sonar. So what this meteorite was telling me is the infiltrated technology in the novel that is able to alter the trajectory, or that's the intention, to alter the trajectory, putting it on a collision course for a planet, Earth, let's say, in the novel. Whilst it's able to do that by infiltrating the sonar and the sounds, it can't do anything at all about the gold and dust in 5D, because it's created by bliss. It's a quantum entanglement state where the bliss of awakened humanity is in the same place as the gold in 5D. It's a oneness. The bliss and the gold of the 5D are the same thing. And that it doesn't just assist the galactic structures, it's therefore multiple different consciousnesses, which I didn't go into. I only was looking at the meteorite and other space objects. So the only way for the infiltration to create a situation where a space body is on a natural trajectory for a planet, Earth, let's say, the village, let's say, and actually cause a collision would be to prevent bliss. Now, I know that there have been times in the past, so we are told, where there have been collisions. And what I was told, and this was by the 9 afterwards, after when I was unraveling everything, is that if something else can be created that causes lots and lots of fear, then the fear vibration competes with the bliss vibration and isn't enough to create this golden structure in 5D. And so that's when things can happen that are more galactic and planetary, like volcanoes and earthquakes and tidal waves and asteroids hitting Earth in the novel, all fiction. That's when it can happen, when they can create these calls, these broadcasts, because fear is a broadcast wave, bliss, joy, love, happiness, with its charge, with conscious intention and attention from aware humanity, is a call, it is a beacon, it is a pulse. So that's why it's so important for us to be in that state. Now, that does not mean that we should feel guilty or less than if we can't feel bliss 24/7. That isn't what it means. We're still human. We're going to have our days where we feel terrible. But as long as there is some level of aware humanity within the starseeds feeling the bliss, then the signal's always there. And that's how it works. I think I've spoken to you about this before. We are constantly giving out a bliss charge signal. So there's nothing they can do. Now, one of the things that they can do, and it's yet again the same hijack, is the JUICE program within the novel, which takes away the ability for humans to radiate a signal through the DNA, through the structure within that quantum entanglement and become one with the galactic. It takes that away, even though there are this minor few group that have been able to transcend that. They are few and far between. But those who are free of that hijack within the novel are radiating, and there's still enough. There's still enough. I mean, I'm one person and I was able to heal a massive, massive, massive space object just by touching it with my left hand in an astral projection remote view experience. I did that myself on my own. My guidance system wasn't doing the healing. They brought me to do the healing because it must be human to space rock itself so that we can have that communication. It's opened my eyes. I knew rock held memory. I didn't even think that space rocks would hold galactic memory. I mean, obviously, if we go to a stone circle and we place our hand on the stones, we can get downloads. Here in England, in Avebury, Stonehenge, we can get downloads from the stone. We get downloads from crystals. We get downloads from the crystal skulls. I didn't even think about a meteorite or an asteroid or anything like that. And I got this massive download. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the notes I made. So I've kind of gone through everything from memory. I'm going to go through the notes because I did ask a couple of questions of the meteorite, and then I did some research into meteorites afterwards to try to work out. I was looking for a photograph of it because I saw it so clearly. I can't find anything that looks like this space rock the same, but I found things that look similar. but they're not the same. I couldn't find any photograph of it. So these are the notes I made. Okay. Asteroids do not, remember this is fiction, we are discussing a novel. Asteroids do not hit planets randomly. They communicate with the core of the planet through signals of frequency similar to Morse code. The meteorite I spoke to was highly intelligent and loving, but sad because his fellow meteoroids and asteroids, I found out what a meteoroid was afterwards, because I thought, well, maybe I don't know the word meteoroid. This told me it was a meteorite. Maybe I translated it. I would say meteoroid is more fitting, because a meteorite is something that's already coming down to Earth. And this wasn't. It was not coming down to Earth. It was out in the galactic planes in space. Sad because his fellow meteoroids and asteroids with whom he is unified with are being manipulated. And in the novel, there's a word they use, zeppon, I-Z, zepponized. So often we need to listen to a certain word and we need to swap the Z with a W, and then we'll get the word that is being said in the novel and the word that's being written in the novel. Zepponized, we're looking at the letter Z, we're looking at the letter W within the novel, within the writing. So we're having a little swap there. With whom he is unified with are being manipulated and zepponized through technology that alters their path. So I am going over what I've said, but I want to really make this clear because it's been an eye-opener for me. It's new information for me, which is, you know, lovely. But as I said, I wasn't planning on making a video on the Lion's Gate. I was going to go out and do a collective meditation. I was going to be working on my book, and I ended up just working with the 9 to integrate and translate all of this download that came through, and then obviously sharing that with you immediately. They are there. That's these meteoroids and asteroids and space rocks. They are there as beacons for space. For space, like the oceans on our planet, space operates as a unified whole, as the oceans operate as a unified whole. This unified whole that we know as space has been infiltrated within its 3rd and 4th dimensional aspects. A webbing has been created. So this is a different webbing to the webbing that's pushed out as the sonar. An inorganic webbing has been created to hold space material in its clutches instead of allowing it to evolve naturally. So space itself has become constricted and restricted, for space itself is being controlled. And I could feel this through communicating with the space rock, because I could feel the constriction and the restriction that was coming mostly from its brothers and sisters and not from it so much, because I wouldn't have been able to access communication with all of these meteorites and space rocks that were in constriction and restriction. They wouldn't be able to communicate with me. They've had the beacons changed and brought down and whatever it is that's been done. This was an organic one, but it was still sad because it was at one with the rest of the galactic plane. So a webbing, an artificial webbing has been created to hold space material in its clutches. Excuse my neighbor's dogs, they always bark like crazy when they're being taken out for a walk. So you'll be hearing them bark for a while. An artificial webbing has been created to hold space material in its clutches instead of allowing it to evolve naturally. So space itself is constricted and restricted as it's being controlled in the fictional novel. Yet the 5th dimension and above cannot be hijacked. Interdimensional matter, which would be known to you as gold dust or space mana. That's what this structure called it, space mana. It holds intelligence through conductivity. So there's some kind of electrical, or it may not even be electricity. There's some kind of conductive plasma-like material that's within this space mana, also known as gold dust. This material, this fifth dimensional matter, is able to travel through the dimensions through wormholes and portals in space. So these are actual wormholes, actual Einstein-Rosen bridges, that the space dust comes down from the dimensions. So we've got these Einstein-Rosen bridges that move from 3D to 5D. You can actually traverse the dimensions through this physical wormhole. And so these golden particles, gold dust or space matter, comes down through these wormholes and portals in space, and they enter 3D space. Then the space rock, the meteorite, the meteoroid, it coats itself around, this is what the space dust does, the gold dust, the space matter, it coats itself around the meteor or the asteroid or the space rock, and then that space rock returns to its original form. It's like it's being fed, which is strange. It's like it's being starved. They're being starved through this hijacking, and when the gold gets to them, they're being fed. And so this constriction and restriction is like, oh, I can breathe again. That's the feeling I got. The other metaphor is like getting hold of a dragon and tying its legs, so when it's trying to fly away, and pulling its legs down to earth with rope, as you've seen in fantasy fiction films, and they trap the dragon and it's trying to fly and it can't get away. It's like, that's the constriction, that's the feeling that these space objects hold. And then someone comes along and cuts the rope and the dragon can fly free. That is the feeling. And I could feel it as I touched this meteoroid or meteorite or whatever it was. The interesting phenomena here is that the awake and aware individuals on Earth, the starseeds, are the ones who create this golden dust, and they create the wormholes, the Einstein-Rosen bridges, the stargates, for the creative and intelligent space matter to come through. So we, the starseeds, create these stargates with our bliss, with our mind, with our knowing, with our connection. And that's all explained in Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame. Because as we create a stargate for ourselves to move through, we're creating stargates galactically. And this is a portal from inner space to outer space. So what we're doing here is we're, you know, I said there's one spiral coming out this side, which is 3D, the space, 3D galaxy, and there's one coming out this side, which is 5D space, 5D inner space, the hyperspace. We're swapping them around with our awareness, our thoughts, our spiritual practice. Our ascension path does this. So we're not just ascending for ourselves. We are, because all of it is us. But if you look at it as individual compartmentalized aspects of consciousness, our ascension is creating this for the galactic structure itself, the galactic mind, the logos, if you will, soul, the sun, the solar being, and all of the planets. Our ascension is creating this change galactically, and this switch between 5D and 3D, upgrading the whole of the galactic structure. It's us that's doing it in our oneness with each other and oneness with the galactic energy. Many in dreams will heal other people. And sometimes within their healing work, through dreams or being awake, they will heal places, and sometimes they will heal spirit entities. Grid workers heal the land and assist with the reformation of and reconstruction of ley lines and the opening of stargates on the land. Yet some stargates are called for conscious galactic healing, even though the galactic healing is taking place simply by them being and walking the ascension path. Some are being called into galactic healing, which is what happened to me early in the morning on the Lion's Gate, the Lion's Gate pinnacle, the 8th of the 8th, 8-8. I was called to give galactic healing to this one space object, and I didn't expect it. It was completely unexpected. I had no intention to do this that I'm aware of. It was a surprise to me. We willingly call upon the galactic energy to heal and activate us, but it's also the way that awake and activated humans return that energy and begin galactic space healing. As star seeds, we are seeded from the stars. They are our parents, if you will, and we are able to give back to them. I didn't realize when I was taken up to this space rock that called itself a meteor that I would be healing it. I naturally placed my hand upon it in order to communicate with it and merge with it and know it. And the love outpouring from this seemingly innocent rock, you know, it wasn't a unicorn or an ascended master or a rainbow flash of light. It was a rock. And yet the outpouring of love from this space rock was truly profound and of immense proportion. So you know me as Magenta Pixie, but my birth name is Petra, P-E-T-R-A, Petra. That's the name I was given from my parents. Now, when I was a child, I remember my sister, her name meaning something like the one who dances with the sun, and my brother's was warrior of the, I can't remember, but they were just really poetic, romantic, dynamic, beautiful meanings for their names. And so were all my friends. So I was really excited to find out what Petra meant. And when I was told at a very young age that Petra means rock, I was really disillusioned and disappointed. I couldn't believe, why have I got such a boring meaning of my name? Petra means rock, like just a rock. It was just awful when I was a kid. And even as an adult, I still thought, you know, before I was awakened, I still thought, gosh, you know, I really do have the most mundane, just like low vibrational, boring meaning for my name. So uninspiring. And I was very disappointed. But as I woke spiritually, I always had a feeling that maybe the rock had a different meaning and it would reveal itself. And it has revealed itself to me specific to one past life incarnation memory that I hold, where the rock was very significant. And it was like, if you look at the rocks of Australia and the Sedona, Arizona, and Australia, Uluru, that these beautiful red rocks there, they are like beacons, major beacons for the galaxy, giving out a constant signal of Earth. And that's how these space rocks communicate with the core of Earth. The signal is sent out through mountains and rocks and everything that can broadcast a signal. So I realized rock wasn't quite as boring as I thought, but now I know why I hold the vibrational energy of the word rock in the meaning of my birth name, because I have a profound unity with this space rock. And I didn't even know I had that profound unity with the space rock until the morning of the Lion's Gate 2022, when I was taken into this remote viewing. I fell in love, literally, I've just fallen in love with this space rock. I really have. I just fell in love with the energy of the space rock. It called itself a meteor. So I'm now really pleased that my name means rock, because I now know what a rock really is. And it is a profound consciousness full of love. And it's not what I thought. It's taken me years to work that out. Carrying on with my notes here, I placed my hand upon the rock. I felt its sadness lift This rock was naturally pure and totally innocent, kind of like a unicorn, the purity and the energy of it, holding the templates for the entire creation of the galaxy within its body. I knew it was very large in third dimensional terms, but in the remote viewing, I was larger than the space rock myself, for we can change our form at will in the astral realms. I knew that this rock was very, very hot, extremely hot, so much so that no human in the third dimension could survive being around it for miles, probably. That's how big it was. For miles, probably. But in the astral form, whilst the rock is known to be hot and the temperature can be measured in physical terms, it's not a problem for the astral celestial body to touch its beloved brother, the rock, for you operate at that time as an interdimensional being yourself. So these notes are kind of half from the 9 and half from me, and they're partly a question and partly a statement and partly a download. The asteroid-meteorite, because I'm referring it to an asteroid now because I did some research, the asteroid meteorite told me that the hijacking and Zeppenization of space was throughout the third dimension and fourth dimension, but not the fifth dimension. Bearing in mind that that's just one model. You may hear other conduits, other channels say that, you know, the hijacking goes through to dimension number 263, whatever model they hold, it's the same thing. In the model the 9 use, 3D, 4D are hijacked, 5D cannot be. But in other models, they may tell you 5D is hijacked, but it's still the same thing. It's just the way that we all perceive those dimensions, because as I've said before, dimensions don't really exist as 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're not linear, they're all one thing. The higher self aspect of this rock was golden dust, literally powdered dust or sparkly dust, like little pieces of gold known as space mana. This is activated in response to the bliss-charged love signal coming from the awakened ones, the starseeds on Earth. So when the starseeds feel love, joy, bliss, euphoria, connectedness, togetherness, unity, compassion, they radiate that together as a broadcast signal, like a giant pulse into space, a huge Morse code signal. This opens stargates, wormholes known as Einstein-Rosen bridges, bringing this golden space dust or space mana into the third dimension, into actual space. The scientists on Earth do not know what this is, but they have seen it, I'm told. They have seen it, but they do not know what it is. It presents to them like magnetic dust particles and potentially magnetic golden dust particles, gold dust. So there are some scientists who are aware of this. They then coat the entire asteroid, which allows that asteroid to revert back to its original signal, which I said. I've also said it's okay to tell you all this because there's nothing they can do to stop this in the novel from occurring, as it's a natural response to the bliss-charged love signal. The only thing that the negative structure can do is to attempt to prevent these higher emotions within awakened humanity, and this attempt will not be successful due to the sovereignty of the starseeds at critical mass for the bliss-charged love signal. It doesn't need many to be at critical mass for the bliss-charged love signal. It won't succeed. It cannot succeed. It's impossible. They don't even know where these starseeds are. And the starseeds are able to disguise that signal in certain circumstances. I've told you about the black flame. That's what the black flame does. So I asked this space rock a question. It called itself a meteorite, as I've said. I asked, and this was the first thing that came to my mind, and I asked the question whilst in the astral form. I didn't ask the question once I woke up. I asked the question whilst in the astral experience, in the astral body, remote viewing, and with my left hand on this rock. I asked it and said, if space is being Zeppenized, space is being Zeppenized, Zepanized in the novel, how can we possibly hope to win this or to bring down the overlord structure? If they have the capacity to Zepanization of space, if they're that powerful to Zepanize space, how can we hope to win? Us little starseeds down here, we don't have that technology. How can we hope to win? How can we hope to bring down the overlord structure when they're that powerful? And this rock replied to me and said, you don't do that. That is not your focus. It's not your focus to win. It's not your focus to bring down the overlord structure. Your focus is to survive within it, to survive within the hijacked structure, and not only survive, but thrive within the hijacked structure. And you do this through unity, unity with self, with the galactic consciousness, and with one another, with our fellow like vibrational humans. The overlord structure will create their own downfall. This has already begun, and we don't need to do anything to create the downfall. Our focus is on our survival and thriving in unity. When we focus there, they bring about their own downfall. So the focus is not on bringing the overlord structure down in the novel. The focus is on survival, on thriving, and on unity. We're focusing over here, and this will happen naturally. If we try to focus over here, we're in resistance to it not falling, and we will add to its power. So we focus over here, which is survival, thriving within survival, and unity. When we're all over here, that's going to take care of itself. That's what this rock told me. You survive within it, you thrive within it. And you do this through unity with self, with the galactic consciousness, and with one another. They will create their own downfall, and this has already begun. Those who are awakened to truth, awareness, and hold fifth dimensional consciousness have already won, in inverted commas. They've already won in that 5D consciousness. So they don't need to think about winning. It's happened already. So again, we can use these different focuses as an example. If we're over here thinking, how are we going to win? How are we going to win? That's 3D. We move to 5D, we've won. And in all honesty and truth, there's nothing to win, because there is no opponent there, as I've spoken to you about before. Then this space rock said to me through telepathy, your story is the story of David and Goliath. This space rock said to me, the Zepanization within the novel of space is Goliath. So the Zepanization of space, of the galactic plane, is Goliath. They then said, literally, Goliath, you will see an actual Goliath before you in space, and it will take that name. So something in space is going to be named Goliath. We will literally see it. That will be our sign that this is correct, what I'm being told here, that the Zepanization of space is Goliath. We, the aware truth seekers, the starseeds, we are the children of the house of David. I don't know any more about this yet. I will be speaking to the 9 about this. This is all I was told. We are the children of the house of David, or we could also be classed as the tribe of David. So we together, all the starseeds, all the awakened truthers, all the DNA activated individuals going through ascension, we are David. The Zepanization of space is Goliath. This is a David and Goliath story. So what I was shown here is this David and Goliath story, which we know from our children's biblical Sunday school or biblical study, is actually true. It's actually true. It's really occurring. But it was not really a record or an account of history. It was a projection of what is to come. Could be history as well. If we look throughout history, there may be many David and Goliath moments, but this is where we are now. Once I was told about the David and Goliath, I then was back in my body and I opened my eyes. So that was the end of the astral projection and I was awake. When I woke up, I couldn't believe I'd just merged with this beautiful, pure being that was actually a space rock. It held so much intelligence and so much love. And I asked the 9, this was a question I then asked the 9. So I didn't ask this question of the meteoroid, I asked the 9. Is this what the Galactic Federation is? As in the Galactic Federation of Worlds or the Galactic Federation of Light or some other term used to mean Federation of Galactic Beings? Whatever title is given to these celestial beings or space travelers or interdimensional travelers or time travelers, whatever name you want to give to them, is that who they are? Is the consciousness of these asteroid, comet, meteoroid, space rocks, are they the Galactic Federation of Light and the Galactic Federation of Worlds and the Galactic Councils? Is that who they are? And this is what the 9 replied. It is not the space rock itself that you communicated with. It is the entire galactic consciousness at 5th dimensional level. This is the consciousness realm of archetypes. And within that archetypal field or grid, personas and personalities are presented in accordance with humanity's expectation, or indeed the expectation of the particular channel or conduit. You, as Magenta Pixie, no longer hold expectation of archetypal communication, as you once did. Therefore, the galactic energetic can and will present itself to you in its true form, or rather the form you see within the 3rd dimension, which is the form presented as planets, space matter like rocks and asteroids, moons, brown dwarfs and planetoids, and multiple other presentations, stars. These 3rd dimensional presentations are the Galactic Federation of Worlds, Councils, and light encoded consciousness of the 5th dimension. There will be those in the astral reality through remote viewing that enter the ships and the mothership and commune with the extraterrestrial, interdimensional conglomerates, officiates, and councils that are projected forth as an intelligence broadcast signal from multiple other planetary systems. There are those like you that enter 4th dimensional space, known as antimatter or hyperspace, that converse with the space structures. Each structure holds the consciousness and memory of the other, as your 4th dimensional space is built upon a fractalized and holographic structure. Therefore, entering ships to speak with a planetary council of interdimensional emissaries, or placing one's hand upon a meteor or asteroid in space is one and the same thing. So that was interesting. The galactic federations and councils, therefore, are the structures within what we know as space. Of course, when we travel in space astrally, we are traveling within our own cellular memory structure, which is the inverse to the physical 3rd dimensional space that cannot sustain physical 3rd dimensional life without technologies, and even then, only to a very limited capacity. I asked the 9 if there was a being or ascended master or any other archetype that could be associated with this meteoroid or asteroid that I spoke with. And they replied, the closest archetype would be the ascended master magician Merlin of positive polarization. I asked why Merlin, and they replied, because he wears a black cloak adorned with stars, and that represents outer space, or inner space, if you will. Merlin is the consciousness closest to the rock I spoke to. So when I have worked all this out and integrated all this, I've taken the Zeppanization in the novel of space, the Zeppanization of space has occurred. Previously, I've been given intel from remote viewing astral projections that the entire physical reality is the ground where the polarity play out takes place, if you will, the entire physical reality. So not just the kooky-roo-roo, as in the pathogenic sequence, they've utilized fear of outside threat from kooky-roo-roo, pathogenic sequence, fighting and arguing on the field with the horses and the swords and the shields and all of that. And that can be translated in the novel to something more of a dukey nature. Then we're looking at famine. So we have shortages of the biscuits and the chips and all the things we like to eat. And then it's fear over here and fear over here and fear over here. Having this experience on the morning of the Lion's Gate, I haven't had this confirmed by the 9, but I am feeling, and I will be speaking to them more about this, but I'm feeling that space is the next arena to be presented as this, within the novel, threat to the villagers. I feel space is the next arena, the next area. I mean, it's all happening all at once, but I feel that's the next one coming in. Why else would I have this experience? I mean, there are other reasons, obviously, to commune with the galaxy, the galactic planes, to understand the archetypes are actually third dimensional structures. But an asteroid, talking about its trajectory, talking about not wanting to go into a collision, wanting to map out its trajectory so it moves past because it holds kinship with humanity. I think the fact that I've been given this information is leading me to feel that space will be the next arena where they're bringing in something to create fear. If we remember what the asteroid meteoroid said, then we can create the stargates through bliss-charged love. We can create this gold dust, this space mana, and we can create it coming through these portals to coat the asteroids and these space rocks so they are immune from the hijacked homing signal, and they will never intentionally collide with any planet, and they will never intentionally collide with Earth. So that's our role collectively. Just like to talk a little bit more about my research into what this might be. So I looked at meteor and I saw that a meteor is something that's coming into Earth's airspace, coming into Earth's field. And when I looked at pictures of meteors, they were just kind of like more like crystal type rocks. It just wasn't like that. So I'm still not sure why it called itself a meteor, but I did look at a meteoroid, and I found a picture of a meteoroid, and it was similar. It was similar to the meteoroid, but it had these black elements to it. And it was kind of a different shape to the pictures I was finding. I also found a picture of an asteroid. Now it was more like that. It was more like an asteroid. Like I said, it called itself a meteorite. It was more like an asteroid. Not exactly the same as any pictures I found, but much closer. And then I also found a picture of a comet, and it was similar to that as well. As I said, these are all man-made categorizations of what are potentially the same things. And then I found this interesting story about this, this traveling meteorite, comet, asteroid. No one knows what it was. And I don't know if I can pronounce this. It was called Oumuamua. Oumuamua, spelled Oumuamua. I was doing some research and found a picture of it. And it was similar. It was similar to this Oumuamua. Well, anyway, whatever. I can't say it. It was similar. It was similar. It was similar in shape because it had this cigar-shaped, elongated shape, but it wasn't the same. It was different. I can't find a single picture anywhere of what it looked like. If I find anything, I will share it on my social media, but they're the nearest things. I mean, afterwards, I just thought, well, it doesn't really matter what it was, does it? It doesn't matter if it's a specific named meteoroid or comet or asteroid. It's a space rock. So this was my astral projection and remote view and communication with this space rock. And I wanted to share it with you. So yeah, it's interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, actually. I don't have comments in the YouTube area, but if you join any of my social media platforms, then by all means leave a comment. You can leave a comment on Rumble, and I'll share this video on Rumble once it's been up on YouTube for a while. I'll share it on Rumble, and I will link the video to Telegram, Instagram, Gab, Minds, MeWe. I'm on all of those. And I'm also on Truth Social now. So if you want to join me on Truth Social, Cat's Magic's on there as well. Magenta Pixie, me, Cat's Magic is him. So if you want to join us, please do. And I will, I can communicate with you all there. So, you know, I'd love to hear your opinions about this. I think I've unpacked this quite a lot. I feel that there's more to come. I think when you place your hand on a rock and get a download from that rock, as I've said, it could be Stonehenge, it could be Avebury, it could be anywhere within a sacred site or an ancient old building, ancient structure. The download takes quite a while to process. And I don't feel that this is fully processed yet. I think there's more to come, but that's everything I have for now. And I wanted to share it. So happy Lionsgate energy to you all. Thank you so much for sticking with this video. I know it's quite a long one. Thank you for staying with me to the end. And I'm wishing you lots of love. And I will see you all again soon. Bye.